Good morning. Yes, my hair is bad, and well, I just woke up a little bit ago, but Sammy's asleep and everybody's asleep, so I actually have time right now to make a little video and tell you a little bit about myself and what's going on here. Because I did a video yesterday that I can't post yet until until I tell you guys a little bit more about what's happening. So when Sammy was born, he was mostly normal. But there were still kind of some weird things happening with him that I didn't quite catch on to. And so we didn't really figure out what was happening until he was 13 months old. And at that point, he was like sleeping all day. He was going backwards in his developments. He was not doing good. And then he started to like turn more into a baby. Like his body went backwards, his mind went backwards, everything was really bad. So we ended up in the hospital. I went to the emergency room first. They told me to go to, actually, no, I didn't go to the emergency room. I went to see a nurse. And she told me to immediately go to the emergency room. We needed to be in the hospital. He was lethargic, couldn't keep his eyes open, just really bad. And yeah, I should have caught on earlier, but there was something going on with me too that I didn't catch on to. So we went to the emergency room. I drove him over there, and we were just sitting there for hours, and they told us that we were going to have to go to the hospital in Phoenix Children's Hospital, and that they didn't want us to go home. They wanted me and Sammy to stay there and get an ambulance ride to the hospital. And I was like, okay, sure, whatever, we'll do that, because something's going on. It's not good right now. And so we stayed there. They put an IV in his arm, and then waited and waited and waited for the ambulance. And then the doctors were looking at me like it was super crazy, and they did not like me because of what was going on with Sammy. They thought he was not doing good. And so I was like, okay, and I'm just going to sit here and wait and do what you tell me, And then the IV that they put in his arm went bad, and so his entire left side of his, I can't remember if it was left or right, but one side of his body puffed up like huge, like a balloon. It was so scary, and I was like, oh my God, someone come and help me. And so they did. They came in and they said, oh, the IV went bad. Apparently it happens. And then they're like, oh no, we got to put another IV in. I was like, oh my God, no. Because they had already poked his arms like 7 times. 3 times on one side, 4 more times on the other side. And then the IV went bad, and I was like, whoa, no. And so then I was like, okay, I'm leaving. We've been here for hours waiting for the ambulance. I'm leaving. I'm going to take him down to the hospital myself. And at that point, they said that no, I could not leave. And if I did leave, they were going to call the cops. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to stay here then, because I don't want the cops to get called on me, and my baby's just not doing good. So we stayed. But apparently they were looking at his blood, and they told me at that point that it looked like he was severely malnourished. There was something really, really wrong with my baby. And I was like, oh, I just thought that, like he wasn't pooping. He would cry all the time. He was uncomfortable. He was not trying to move or crawl a lot. I mean, he could still get up on his hands and knees. He was still sucking. He was nursing. He was 13 months old and only nursing. I tried to give him foods, but he wasn't interested really in the food that I was giving him. So we just kept nursing. And then, they tell me, it looks like your baby is severely malnourished. And I was like, my God, okay. So we get to the hospital, in Phoenix eventually, and we're there, and I'm telling her, the doctor that's there in the middle of the night, because it was like 1 or 2 in the morning, telling her some about us, what's going on with Sammy. He's going backwards in his developments. He's sleeping all the time. He's uncomfortable. He won't poop. His digestion, everything was just not good, he just was, and all he wanted to do was eat and nurse. Then I told her, I was like, I'm vegan. And she was like, okay, all right, and took the notes or whatever, And then the next day, more doctors, blood tests. They never put the IV in again, because I told them what happened with his the emergency room put the IV in, poked him so many times, and so they decided just to wait. So they didn't put the IV back in. They waited for his veins to heal up a little bit after the other emergency room messed up so bad. And then, eventually they got him on the IV, and they took more blood, and they started figuring out what was going on with him. So it turns out the official diagnosis over 2 years ago now was he was severely malnourished from breastfeeding and me being vegan. So at that point, realizing that my lifestyle choice has severely affected my son, I went and ate a hamburger right away. I was pretty hungry, I suppose. And so we were in the hospital for 2 whole weeks. He had severe malnourishment. So also, they figured that out. And then they did an MRI, and the MRI shows brain atrophy. So his brain shrank away from his skull because he had no nourishment available in his system to build his brain and nervous system. Yeah. So, turns out babies cannot grow on vegetables. Really bad. They need animal proteins and animal fats. So, when I was pregnant, he did okay. He did fine because my body just depleted itself to support him. But breastfeeding, when I started breastfeeding him, no. Big no. Huge. It was so bad I can't even... he should have been on formula, really. Breastfeeding. Breast is best? Not when you're vegan. And I don't think any mom growing a baby should be vegan, because you really can't get what you need for your baby. And anyway, so in the hospital, I didn't really realize that what was going to be happening after we got out of the hospital. I mean, brain atrophy. I did not realize I was dealing with special needs. Did not realize. I had no idea at this point. So in the hospital, they put a tube down his nose and into his belly so that they could feed him. And then, this is when it seriously got bad. So they put the tube down his nose. He was still able to suck at this point. He was still able to drink, breastfeed. And they put the tube down his nose. And then he was being stuffed with formula, which is probably, it was better than my breast milk, but he forgot how to suck after that. And that is probably one of the worst things that any parent probably ever has to deal with. When your baby forgets how to eat and drink and swallow and use its mouth. Very difficult. It's been over 2 years, and just about 2 months ago, he has now just finally I don't have to worry about him eating or drinking. He can eat food and he can drink things. He can even drink out of a straw. And that's very recent. That's within the first month, the last month that he could drink out of a straw. And he can put food in his mouth. So this is huge. That was him forgetting how to swallow. So difficult. And anyway, so when we got out of the hospital, we had the diagnosis: severely malnourished, vitamin B12 deficiency, brain atrophy. And I thought he was gonna be a normal baby. He was pretty normal before all his brain started shrinking, I guess. And so at first, when we first got back from the hospital, I didn't realize that things were going to be as hard as they were. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background before I post the next video, which is a video of Sammy actually eating and sitting up. So for about a year and a half, he didn't gain any weight after the hospital. He stayed about 17 pounds for a year and a half. A 1-year-old baby stayed the same weight. And so he didn't gain any weight. And he repeatedly forgot how to swallow. We had a speech therapist working with us, and she kept, we would work with him. He would remember how to swallow his lips and his tongue, and but then, a week or two later, he would forget again. And at one point, he couldn't even open his mouth. So any food I tried to give him, here, just do this. Wouldn't open his mouth. So I had to give him liquid, so soft boiled egg yolks, and I just put it in his mouth with a special cup the speech therapist had for us, and he would just drink it through his teeth. He'd just drink it through his teeth like that, and for 2 weeks he couldn't even open his mouth. He was a complete noodle. His arms, he had no control over his arms, no control over his body. He started having seizures. He couldn't open his mouth. The speech therapist, she was like, I can't, you need to go in and get him a feeding tube. And I didn't have the right insurance at that moment. I was like, please work with us for the next 2 weeks. I'm going in. I just have to figure this out. Just keep working with us, please, for these couple weeks until I get things sorted out so we can go and get him taken care of. And, yeah, she did. She kept helping us. And within those 2 weeks of him not being able to open his mouth, he was having these terrible seizures, 12 at night, screaming, awful seizures. And all through the day, he was having seizures. And, and we were seeing a doctor that ended up helping us a lot. This doctor, she was amazing. She's such a blessing. And, she started pointing me in the direction of really nourishing foods. So at this point, when Sammy couldn't even open his mouth, she was introducing me to these ultra nourishing foods. And she knew what Sammy was going through because she herself had gone through a B12 deficiency, where she had demyelination of her spinal cord and her hands were going numb, and she was not vegan. She didn't get it from being vegan. She got it from a parasite that was stealing the nourishment from her body. So anyway, she knew exactly what Sammy was going through, and she knew exactly how to help us. I mean, it was a miracle blessing, this woman, in our lives. And so she started introducing me to really nourishing foods and for the brain and B12, and she knew what was happening with Sammy and his seizures and stuff and his diagnosis. And so I started giving him soft boiled egg yolks that were liquid, that are liquid. I still give him soft boiled egg yolks, and raw liver, chopped up raw liver. And this chopped up liver could go through his teeth because he couldn't open his mouth, so he had to drink it like this. And so that, and when I started giving him that raw liver, I mean, I could tell, like, he was like, his body loved it, and he started to do better. And within the 2 weeks that he couldn't open his mouth, and the speech therapist was like really, really freaking out, and like, uh-oh, like things are bad for him, and he couldn't get food in his system. Well, within that 2 weeks, he got he got better. He started opening his mouth, and it was easier to feed him. And I was giving him these ultra nourishing foods. And anyway, so since then we've had him on a special diet, like I said, and it's been the diet has kind of shifted and changed a little bit, with, who we're working with, and what foods I was introduced to in the beginning from this doctor who really was amazing and helped us so much. So she pointed us in the right direction, and from there I've been seeing another neurologist and a special dietitian, and all this stuff. And since then, since we've had all of this amazing help, he he's doing great, and he doesn't have seizures anymore. His brain is growing back, and the seizures, he hasn't had a seizure since the end of November 2021. So it's been months since he's had a seizure. And your brain just needs a lot of fat and animal proteins, animal fat to work right. Okay? So anyway, I'm gonna show you this next video of how good Sammy's doing. Before I was I was documenting all of this. I was documenting his seizures and his the tubes, just all of this stuff, how hard it was to feed him, this insane limpness that was going on with him. And I documented it all, and then I lost all of it. I stored all the files on a flash drive, and the flash drive got corrupted, and it's gone. It's all gone. So I can't show you how he used to be. I can just show you how he is now and explain how he used to be and what we've gone through. And any parent who's gone through a child forgetting how to swallow knows exactly what it was like for me and how hard it is. And the doctors told me to put a permanent feeding tube in his belly, and I didn't. I did not know I was dealing with special needs at that point. She told me I need a permanent feeding tube, and I freaked out, and I never went back to that doctor. I was like, whoa, he can swallow, he's fine. Well, yeah, after that he forgot how to swallow repeatedly, over and over and over and over again. But I kept going. I kept trying. I kept going, and I kept talking to different doctors, and I found a doctor that helped me, and I found a doctor that helped him, and she was amazing. And he's eating food now by himself. Obviously, still needs some work. You'll see in the next video, but thank you for watching, and I hope this gets out there and helps people in whatever way that they need help with. And so anyway, me and Sammy, and we've been going through a lot, and I'm gonna just post as much as I can about that, and kind of share with you the special diet we're on. And that things have worked for us so far. And so anyway, thank you.